Hello, and welcome to a new episode of From the Honeycomb podcast. I am your host, Katerina Burenova. Each week, we dive into a blend of topics that resonate with the soul. Whether you're an architect enthusiast, have a passion for wanderlust, want to discover holistic approaches to rejuvenate your body and mind, or are intrigued to learn about Vastu Shastra with a modern approach, you've come to the right place. Join me as I sit down with inspiring, like-minded women from various walks of life. We will delve into their journeys to discuss the challenges and moments that define their paths. So sit back, relax, and let the spark of positive energy ignite your curiosity. Hi, it's me, Katerina. Before we jump into today's episode, I want to share with you something that can change the trajectory of your life. If you are ready to start your own architecture firm but are feeling overwhelmed by where to begin, I understand, because I felt the same way when I first embarked on my entrepreneurial journey. This is why I have created the ebook, The Mindful Blueprint for Launching Your Architecture Firm. This comprehensive workbook contains everything I wish I had known before starting my own firm. From building a solid business plan to creating your brand, The Mindful Blueprint for Launching Your Architecture Firm offers a step-by-step guide tailored to your timeline, whether you're launching your firm today, next month, or in a few years. Dive into essential topics like financial planning, organization strategies, and how to secure your first client, all in one convenient resource. That's right, you don't have to spend hours researching. I have done that for you so you can focus on building your business. And that's not all. With your purchase, you'll also receive an exclusive meditation for business owners, mindfulness tips, a crystal guide for support, and gratitude exercises to help you stay focused and positive throughout your journey. Turn your dream of having your own firm into a reality with the Mindful Blueprint for Launching Your Architecture Firm. Click on the link in the show notes to get your copy today. Now, let's dive into the episode. Today, I am joined by the founder, director, and designer of the Traveler Series jewelry brand, Tiffany T.O. With a background in photography and graphic design, Tiffany has curated a beautiful array of jewelry pieces, from capsule necklaces to wedding earrings and your everyday jewelry pieces. There is an extensive collection to choose from. So Tiffany, welcome to From the Honeycomb.
Thank you, Katerina. So lovely to be here, and thank you for having me.
And as you know, we begin every episode by sharing something that we are grateful for in the present moment. And so what are you grateful for?
I'm honestly just grateful to have a new day each day, for a possibility to do new projects, new ventures, meet new people. That's basically what drives me to wake up every morning.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Such a positive outlook too. Just thinking about it, day to day, I feel like we can get really stuck in like the fast pace of it. And it sounds like you kind of take a moment to reflect and go, okay, you're grateful for each day.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, like, we're all human. I'm also human. There are days where I do tend to forget, but that's when it's good to just take a few slow breaths and take a step back and look at your life from a third person point of view. And then that helps me kind of recenter myself and realign with, again, what makes me grateful first thing in the morning when I open my eyes.
Oh, I love it. So, Tiffany, share with us your story about how you started the Traveler Series, because I was looking through your website before this interview, and I am just amazed at the designs. They're so beautiful. Like I said, from the birthstones to the pearl earrings to the personalized alphabet, like you have really curated a beautiful collection. So, share with us kind of the origin of your company.
Thank you so much. That's so lovely of you to say. So I started my company in 2020, and before that, I was a wedding photographer. So in 2020, that's when Sydney went into lockdown during COVID-19. And as a wedding photographer, I lost all my bookings for that year because nobody was sure when weddings would happen again. And the way with wedding bookings work is I was booked every single month that year. And that's basically how I determined my income for the year. So basically, because all the bookings were gone, I knew I had no more income for the year unless I do something else. Now, jewelry making was sort of my hobby on the side because I just love doing lots of creative things on the side. I had an Etsy store then, and I would do it as a hobby. But what I noticed on Etsy at the time was my sales were doubling. And I was like, oh, this is an interesting thing to observe. And so I figured, why not turn this into a brand? I have so much time. I have experience in photography, in branding and graphic design. And so with maybe a blindly optimistic mind, I just went into creating my own brand. And then I just learned everything on the go, from the marketing to the UX of the website to even like coordinating the packaging and dispatching of the orders. Yeah, everything was just done on the spot. But once again, because it was COVID, I had so much time anyways, and I
Mhm.
had nothing else to lose. And yeah, well, here we are. I can honestly say when Sydney's lockdown was over and everyone was back to doing their thing, I found myself in a position of, do I get back into photography? Because that was the original plan. But
Mhm.
because my jewelry business was just doing so much better and actually giving me a better lifestyle balance, I decided to just continue on with this. So yeah, that's how it happened. And definitely wasn't planned, but it was a, a blessing in disguise, I'd say.
No, absolutely, absolutely. And it's amazing too to hear the background you have in photography and graphic design. And I think that has also helped you with probably the behind the scenes of photographing the pieces, the marketing behind it. Like, I'm sure you've had to learn. I mean, I can't even imagine what it's like to, I mean, I've launched an ebook, but that's it. But to launch a physical product, and then you think about the shipping, and it goes down to the very details. And I'm sure like that took a lot of figuring out, a lot of trial and error for you. So, walk us through kind of like the beginning stages. So, once you started seeing that your business was taking off, what were some of the challenges you kind of started to see and how did you approach them?
Oh, there were definitely many challenges. So the biggest one was digital marketing or paid
Mhm.
ads, because as I wanted the business to continue scaling, it was very evident that I needed more skills in certain areas. And the biggest one for e-commerce, because I'm an online only business. So the biggest one in e-commerce is having a digital presence on different social media platforms or Google. And that's where I was very limited. And what helped me was realizing that I don't have to do things alone. There are people out there who are skilled in other areas that I'm not. And so all I had to do was find the right people with the right skills who want to work with me and help me in areas that I'm weak in. And that's not to say it came easy. It was very hard to trust people to look after something I've built from scratch. And there was definitely trial and error. Like I wouldn't say the first people I hired were wins. I wouldn't say the second were wins either, not even the third. But as with every trial, error, and failure, you get so many more lessons that you can take on to improve with the next step. So yes, anyways, delegating the marketing was probably the biggest one because when I was doing it myself, it was consuming so much time, taking me away from the parts of the business that I love, which is the product and the customers and the branding. And then yeah, I mean that's one big challenge. I can keep going if you like on all the
Oh,
others.
I want to touch base on delegating. That is what I've
Yeah.
heard from so many entrepreneurs and business owners is you can only go forward, maybe not like faster, but you can
Hmm.
grow. That's what I'm looking for. The word is growth. You
Yes.
can grow at such a more faster pace when you delegate, and you can also just see just your business grow. And so that's great that you started to delegate. I resonate with that a little bit, like with my podcast, the editing. That's something I'm not very good
Yes.
at. I delegated that out, and because my favorite part is the interview, even some of the marketing, putting the photos together, of course. So you were very smart to delegate from the beginning, which I think has made you so successful now.
It has been one of the best decisions ever because it's true. You can't, there's only so much one person can do on their own.
Mhm.
And no business thrives, or even no one thrives successfully on their own. They need support, they need a team, they need a community. So that's one thing. If I ever meet a business owner who says like they're stuck because they just can't handle like everything that they're doing, that's what I would tell them. Start delegating.
Mhm.
Because if you don't, you're going to start falling out of love with your business because you're going to run yourself down to the ground doing the parts that you don't like and forgetting the parts that you do like.
Mhm. That is so well said because that is so true. And I think, it takes a village. People think entrepreneurship or
Yes.
business owner is so, it's such a solo, job. But really it, like you said, it takes a village to have
Yeah.
a company. And like I also resonate that with my architecture firm. Like right now I'm doing all of the drawings, but I have an
Mm.
accountant. I have my financial advisor who
Yes.
checks in with me. I'm starting to look for drafts people, and it's like starting to grow, and then you don't feel less alone. And I have to say, on my entrepreneurship journey, I have felt less alone than when I was working at a 9 to 5.
Beautiful. I'm so happy to hear that. I've definitely
Thank
felt
you.
alone in the beginning year when I
Hmm.
was doing everything on my own. And it seems like when you have struggles, who can you speak to? Because you don't really have anyone, or at least at the time, I didn't have anyone who was also doing their own business and who was doing the parts of the business that I was struggling in. But yeah, since then, I really felt like that was so long ago in the past, but really it wasn't. It was only 4 years ago.
That is true. I know. It's crazy to think that COVID in 2020 it's like a long time ago, 4 years ago, but yet at the same time, it doesn't feel like it's been a long time at all.
No, not at all. But yes, if you like, I'll like to continue some more about all the other struggles because
Absolutely. Yeah. No, I'd love to hear. Like I
challenges.
said before the call started, I'm like, I want to talk to you about business a lot as well. And I know my listeners will really resonate with that. So, yeah, please share with us more.
Sure. So the next biggest one is product. And lots of
Mm.
entrepreneurs, they start in product. That's how their business starts. They realize I can provide this amazing service or product that people are going to love. And I also love providing it. And that brought me joy. But then as we continued scaling, there was only, just as a backstory, I made every single piece myself at the
I was,
very beginning.
wow. I was going to ask you that actually. I was
Yeah.
going to ask you. That was one of my questions is like, do you make every piece? Wow.
At the beginning, it was a made to order process. And the reason for this is because of resources. Having started my
Hmm.
business with very, very little capital, I'll be completely honest, I had to be resourceful in the sense where, like, I can't just pre make certain pieces and then just wait for them to sell. I would wait for an order to come in. So I'll know, oh, I only need to use this much of this material and this much. And therefore, like, I'll have enough reserve when the next order comes through. But the downside with that is the time factor, where as we continue scaling, like, it was all right when I was just getting 5 to 10 orders a week. But then once I started getting like 20, 30, 40 a day, there's no way you could do that on your own. So I did get delegations wonderful here. So I hired an assistant jewelry maker. This was just about a year ago to help me with like the scaling and the creation of
Hmm.
the product. And she worked really closely with me. And because my products are my babies, they're basically what customers are paying money for. So you have to make sure they're done right. And they also represent the brand's quality. So they have to be done right. But then as we continued scaling, it became evident that just having one person to assist me is actually not enough. And also the way we had to track the materials and then the final inventory and then still coordinating, like, do we do this on a made to order basis or do we pre-make? So we did a combination of both, and then it became overwhelming to coordinate so many things. So this is the next scary thing. I had to branch out into offshore workshops.
Hmm.
And that was scary because I can't physically see everything they're doing. I just have to trust that I gave them the right specifications and we do it down to the very detail. And when I
Wow.
say detail, in jewelry, we work in point millimeters. So, yeah,
Wow.
so it'll be very specific, but it's needed. So, for example, because like a wire that's zero point 0.6 millimeters, for example, you can use it to do certain wire wrapping techniques. But
Mhm.
the moment it gets to zero point 0.8 millimeters or 1 millimeter, it becomes too thick to do a certain technique and it will crack. So that's why we need
Wow.
to be very specific with these things. But it was all a learning curve. There were definitely times where I wasn't specific enough in my spec sheet, and I've definitely lost thousands of dollars in making like these little mistakes where I forget to
Mm.
mention little things. And of course, it's not the workshop's fault because they were just following what I was asking for. But again, this is business. Like, there's no business in the world that operated without a loss at some stage.
Mhm. No, absolutely, absolutely, and kind of makes me think of architecture plans. Like if we don't note it on the plans, they may not get built, and then we can't be at fault. The general contractor didn't build it because it's not on the plan. So I resonate that. I'm at a bigger scale. I'm in like not even so for metric, like I would say not even centimeters. Well, yeah,
Mhm.
centimeters and meters would be about centimeter would be the smallest, if anything. But that's
Yeah.
amazing to hear. And I think you highlight a really important point is it's expected in a business to have losses. And that's just something that just happens. I'm currently going through it with a project where I'm kind of taking some of the costs because I
Mm.
budgeted differently and I know it's at the beginning and it was my fault. I just under budgeted and so it's just sometimes and that's how you learn. It comes at a financial cost as well as well unfortunately.
It always
But
does, yeah.
yeah.
And now I do have a small community of other business owners, and this was how I found out through these kind of open conversations that yes, everyone has operated at a loss. Yes, everyone has made mistakes that cost the company money, and they had to, that being their business, it's their responsibility to maybe take out funds from however they get their funds from their own personal bank account, maybe loans or something. But it
Mhm.
takes a certain level of humility as well as responsibility to go, I made a mistake. This is my
Mhm.
responsibility. I'll need to fix it. And I'll need to take all these learnings and just treat the losses as very expensive school fees sometimes.
That's a great way to look at it. That's the perfect way to look at it is that's it's like the life lessons, but it's business lessons and yeah, you paid for it and For sure. I think that's a great perspective to look at it that way.
It is. As long as you're always learning from your mistakes, there is not going to be any issue, in my opinion, anyways, with
Mhm.
continuing growing your business.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. So I don't know the economy of Australia. I know I kind of followed in the US right now, and like the economy, obviously there's ebbs and flows. And so now that you're, about 4 years into having your own business, have you seen moments where business has been great, or has there been kind of those dips where you see people aren't purchasing your product?
There's definitely dips, and this is another conversation I have with the small to medium business owner community here in Sydney, where everyone experiences this as well. So it's nothing to be shameful of if you do. And at the moment, this year has been interesting to say the least, in a sense where our marketing, and when I say marketing, I mean our digital paid ad, has not been as efficient as it was last year. And so it could be the economy, in the sense where like most people in general are just being more conscious of what they're buying. However, me being very optimistic, especially when I walk out in the streets of Sydney and I see people like they're still fine dining, they're still going to concerts and such. So in a sense where like we are going through a little bit of a down period, but I'm always confident that it never lasts for long, because that's what down periods are for. That's for you to reassess. What are you doing? Do you need to restructure or rebuild or pivot into something else? Sorry, I don't know if that answers your questions.
No, it absolutely does. And like you bring up a really good point. It allows you to kind of reassess. Like I know in my business, there's slow periods, especially around the holidays.
Mm,
Clients aren't meeting with me. We're not, I'm not signing up new projects. Everybody's doing family time. And so there are these periods, and even into the beginning of January. And I took that time as, okay, let's look at how this year went. Let's reassess. Let's do a few, like a little in-house cleaning, kind of get ready
yeah.
for, because right now the spring and summer is really when I've seen projects start to pick up. And so I like that you bring up that you do have to reassess, because you can't just keep going, going, going and being, going 100 miles an hour. You want to also have those moments of like pausing, reflecting, and checking in with your business.
Yes, absolutely. And these moments are always going to come, not just with the ebbs and flows or like the different stages in the year, but also when it comes to growth, because as you scale, there's no way what used to work will work in like a scale up stage. There's always reassessment, and it might happen in, say if March is always a good month, and then for whatever reason it isn't, like sometimes it's just not predictable either in terms of
Mm-hmm.
the timing. Like yes, you can sort of predict what purchase patterns would be like for my jewelry. My biggest collections are birthstones,
Mm-hmm.
so Mother's Day and the holiday period like November, December, for Christmas gifting, they're super popular. But then my next biggest collection are wedding collections, so pearls and just like little gold pieces that are perfect for brides, bridesmaids, even wedding photographers have bought my jewelry so they could wear something nice to photograph weddings. And
Nice.
these go through periods as well, where like spring and summer is really where like the big wedding season is. So even though I do have these products that are meant to take me through certain good months, there are still months where sometimes I will be like, oh, this was meant to do well. Why isn't it doing well? And then we'll restructure, because it could be something from as simple as advertising fatigue. Maybe we've been like advertising to the same customer pool, and the people who have bought have already bought. The people who are not interested in buying are just, well, yeah, they just don't want to buy. Another way of reassessing it is, are we not providing enough variety in our products? So this was this year's lesson, I'd say, because in all honesty, I haven't released a new collection in about 2 years. So I think it's about time. And I am very, very excited because I have 3 collections that I've been working on.
Wow.
Yeah, I know. I'm so excited. Seen some of the prototypes already, and now it's just a matter of I'm doing the internal coordination with our inventory, our warehouse, our web assistant to get everything. It really does take a team, even from something that sounds as simple as, yeah, releasing a new collection and putting the product online. There are so many stages and steps and areas to delegate it to, and marketing as well. Like we need to then work on like what's the marketing strategy for releasing it. But these are parts of the business that I love. I found like when I started in 2020, I loved making the pieces and packaging them off to customers. I love speaking to customers too. And I still love speaking to customers, but the level is very different. Now I love to design the jewelry, not so much hand make it anymore, because it's very time consuming and it's a process I've done so many times already. So I'd rather just stick to the conceptualizing part and then conceptualizing the strategies for the business. And with my customers, they can see me on social media. So I won't be like on the website chat assisting them, but I have a beautiful, beautiful trained staff her name's China, who will help them out. But where I still show up for my customers, and sometimes it's really cute conversations. Like I'll show up, and then most of the times we bond over dogs. Like I find my customers, and I don't know what is it about it, but dog owners always find other dog owners, and we'll exchange photos. And I just think that's such a wholesome way as well to for the founder of a brand to stay connected with their customers, and for the customers to also know like I'm still around, especially those who started following me in 2020.
Mhm. No, absolutely. Well, that was really interesting to kind of hear how you've, taken into the ebbs and flows of the business and everything, and the fact that you are now launching some new collections, which sounds really exciting. Can you at all share with us any launch dates or not yet?
Not quite yet, because we
Okay.
are still in the coordinating phase. I'm sorry. I
No,
wish I
that's
could, because that would be lovely for me as well to know. Like, I don't want to say July and then it might happen, in August, because
hmm
that's in my experience that has happened where I wanted to launch something in July, and project management wise, when entire plan is laid out, it looks like, yeah, cool, like it'll happen in July. But then all these little things that we didn't think of will start happening. Like for example, because they get made offshore, sometimes it goes through customs really quickly. Sometimes it may not. Sometimes it might get lost. And it has happened before. I can't give anything until I've actually received bulk of the product. At the moment, I do have prototypes, and that's about it. So that's why I can't share, but I can share why I can't share.
No, fair enough. So I wrote an ebook. I launched it in March. It's for anybody who wants to start their own architecture business. And
Cool.
it was a fun little product for me. Like I could do ebook because I can't do a physical product yet, but there is
Mhm.
something possibly in the pipeline for me for a physical product. But yeah, I haven't shared too much about it. But anyway, but the ebook though, same thing. I was like, I'm going to launch it end of January. And I gave myself, like, I started January 2nd. I was like, okay, now I'm going to make the ebook and everything. And I'm like, I'm nuts. Like, in 4 weeks, I'm supposed to write a book, market it, launch it. I was like,
Oh my
what am I?
goodness.
I know, right? I was like, no, I had written most of it. I was still editing a little bit of it. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to launch it in February. And then I was like,
Mhm.
what? No, I can't launch it in February. So I ended up launching it end of March. And I was very
Yep.
careful. I ended up going on a podcast and she's
Mhm.
like, can you share when your launch date is? And I said, well, when is this podcast episode airing? Because fingers crossed. I was like, if I say it on here, I said, hopefully. So I kind of did a little like, I think it should be launched. And it did launch. It launched March 27th. But I completely understand, like, there's so many moving pieces and consumers don't realize until you're on the other end as a business owner, as a creator, as a designer, consumers don't understand how much time from the day it launched going
Yep.
backwards, it's years sometimes for certain products.
Yeah, so I can share with you that a new collection tends to take about 6 months from the idea
hmm
to the actual product being available for customers to buy.
Wow. Yeah, there you go.
The
6
yeah,
months.
yep. The fastest I've ever done it was 4 months, and that was still stressful. So 6 months is like one of those good periods. And yeah, it's true. Like most customers don't realize it because I mean we try to make it so easy for them to just go like, oh, I see a piece I like, I'll just buy it. So it's quite instant and effortless for them. But there was a lot of work that goes into make it instant and effortless for
That is very true. That is very
them.
true. And it makes, I think, now also that I've connected with other small business owners, even through this podcast, and just knowing how much value goes into something created by a small business. I now try to, as much as possible, buy gifts from small businesses when I'm traveling. I was just in Boston. We were at a local market. I ended up getting a cute little Boston sweatshirt from a local business because it adds so much more value and uniqueness. And there's something about the support of someone who has spent 6 or more months creating something so special for you. I think that's really beautiful. It makes those pieces that much more special.
And it does make this team of if the small business is just like one person or a small team, it does make them so happy. Like my team at the moment is really small. And when we get like, a nice purchase, we have a group chat and we'll be like, oh my gosh, this customer bought this product. And we all of us would like celebrate together because it truly means so much because all of us played a part, whether it's like, even if like a person in customer support who didn't make the product, she feels like she's part of it because she'll be like, oh, I spoke to this customer. She had these questions. I'm so happy she bought it after asking me these questions. Like it's very, very wholesome. So yes, definitely when you support a small business, you make such a big difference in their lives. Like, I don't know how many people realize this, but just putting it out there. Yeah.
No, I absolutely love that. And I hope anyone listening too now, when you make that choice of, purchasing from a small business, you're making so many people happy. And one thing I want to talk to you about is also your design process. Just kind of want to talk about that a little bit because that's always interesting to me as an architect. Obviously, design, I'm in that design profession. So, where do you draw inspiration from for your designs? Is it, I know like the birthstones make sense, it has to do with like the
Mm.
month and everything, but you still created, the pieces, the necklaces that they're part of. So, what's your process?
And a very simple answer would be people. People are what inspire me. So with the birthstones, gifting people something sentimental, it was what drove it. And I guess my style, it's quite, I would say it's clean, but still organic. So I bring my own like little, I guess, flavor into it. But the main inspiration is always from people. So that was an example in the birthstones. With my pearl collection, I love to look at brides and I love to look at wedding dresses and veils and all those pieces that come together to make a wedding. And I'll think like, oh, this would look so beautiful on a person if they wore this dress with this necklace, with these earrings, and had their hair done this way. I've also done some custom design sessions where brides would come to me saying, I have a vision for this like earrings or necklace that I want for my wedding, but I don't know, how to make it or how I want like it to look 100%. And so I'll work with them on that. And if I do, I will then name it after my bride. So yeah, it's very meaningful. I'm a very sentimental person. So most of the pearl jewelry that you see, including these ones that I'm wearing right now,
Hmm.
see if you can see that. These were
Hmm.
actually the first bridal earrings I ever made. This was done in 2020 when one of
Mm.
my wedding clients emailed me saying, I'm so sorry, I'm sure you realize like there's no weddings happening. We would still like to keep you on as a photographer, but we just don't know when the wedding is. However, I noticed you doing jewelry on Etsy. So could I maybe get you to make a pair of earrings for me? And I was like, yes, sure. And then we worked together to make the design, and they're actually one of my best sellers. So my bride's name was Pin, and that's why these earrings on the website is called Pin.
I love it. Oh, that's so special. Oh my gosh. I'm so bummed I didn't know you or your company. I got married in 2021 and the
Oh,
jewelry, yeah, the jewelry was unfortunately like the last thing on my list and I just ended up picking something out and I remember I'm like how much thought should I give it because my hair was pulled
mm,
back and I ended up finding these cute little like pearl earrings and they were beautiful but they weren't like, wow, they didn't have that. And I'm so bummed now that I know that your company was around from 2020. That would have been such a beautiful piece because I mean, thankfully I like them. I don't love them, but they're in like every photograph, right? Because my hair is up.
yes,
And so
yes.
it's those little details. And going back to, like you mentioned in jewelry work, goes to like the 0.01 millimeter or just so
Mm,
small. It's even those details for the wedding, for example, or even your day to day of having a jewelry piece and it has a sentimental meaning for you. I'm someone who is very particular about their jewelry. It has to have a sentimental meaning and something
yes.
behind it. And so that is huge. And I can see that for your customers finding a piece off of your website, it can have that sentimental meaning. And especially that's amazing that you curate it for brides as well.
All of this honestly happened very organically, which is, I feel like, the best way, or at least for me,
Hmm.
is the best way. I love knowing that I can help one initial person to create like a piece that they would be truly, truly happy with. And then it's even more amazing to then see, oh my goodness, like this is actually resonating with a lot more people. And the fact that I could also, give tribute to them or give credit to them by naming them after my brides is just, yeah, it's just like a whole level that makes it like, yes, it is a business, but it's not just a sterile business, if you get what I mean.
Hmm. No, absolutely. And it's creating connections as well with the brides, your customers. And I think that's just really beautiful and overall just ties in. I mean, I can see you're very passionate about your products and just your process and sharing and you're not afraid to share with us that, there's down moments in business and you learn lessons and everything. And I think that just makes you also just so relatable and you can connect with your customers as well, because I think that's a big shift we're seeing too, especially in social media, is being able to connect with authentic people. And I can see your authenticity, and you're just such a kind person. Like, I wish we could meet, because I feel
Oh,
like you are so sweet. Like,
oh.
I've loved our conversation and like everything. And it is like there's something about you and your pieces, and it just makes it so unique and special.
Well, if I ever come over to your end of the world, I'll definitely message you. And same thing if you ever want to come visit Sydney,
Absolutely.
come in summertime because that's like the best way to enjoy Sydney.
So I've been to Sydney years and years ago. I was little. Oh, I was like 14. But I do want to come back and explore. My family lived there. They lived in Sydney for a few months, and I never got to visit them. But anyway, which we can touch on that whole thing
Yeah.
after. But anyway, I did want to say, do you ever get any, you mentioned you're inspired by people. Does architecture ever play into it, just out of curiosity?
No, no, it never has. As in, like,
Interesting.
this architecture inspired me with my jewelry.
Mm-hmm.
No, I do appreciate architecture, but no, I can't say like I've looked at, a beautiful building and thought, oh, this would be great for jewelry. What I also mean by I get inspired by people is sometimes I like to look at people and just think, oh, what would, bring out your eyes more? Because it seems to be like the prettiest
Mm.
part of your features, or you're looking a bit uncomfortable. What could you wear instead that would make you more relaxed and confident? So that's also what I mean by people. And totally still being humble here, I feel like that's one of my skills where I can help people look and feel better about themselves.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. I feel like you do have that. And that goes back to that authenticity and relatability. And you have that energy.
Oh, thank you. That's so sweet of you to say.
Of course. I know. It feels like we've known each other longer than like whatever 40 minutes we've been talking. Tiffany, I have really enjoyed this conversation. Thank you so much for taking time to come on From the Honeycomb podcast and share with us your story about your business, the challenges, the ups, the downs, what it's been like for you, your creative process. This has been such a fascinating conversation for me.
Oh, thank you for having me too. I'll be honest, this is like my first proper podcast
Oh,
and
wow.
absolutely no nerves at all either because I loved how detailed your email was. I felt like I knew exactly what to do to be
Oh,
perfectly
good.
ready for you. So thank you as well for having me and
Oh.
thank you for doing this. This has been fun.
Yeah, it has. And also, thank you for reading the email. I said that right when you got on. I'm like, thank you for reading the email. And I'm glad. I think you and I are both very detail oriented. So I think that's why this has worked out very well. And Tiffany, where can listeners find you?
So they can find me on my personal Instagram page, which is Tiffany 2_TEOH, or you'll see me as well appearing on my business's social media on Instagram, just at the Traveler Series.
Perfect. I will provide a link in the show notes for you so you can connect with Tiffany, see all of her beautiful jewelry pieces. Tiffany, thank you again.
Thank you as well, Katarina. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for listening to this episode of From the Honeycomb podcast. As we conclude, I want to express my gratitude for joining me in today's episode. I hope you have found it insightful and inspiring. If you enjoyed today's episode, please take a moment to rate, review, and click that like button so you never miss an episode. And don't forget to share this with your friends. You can follow me on Instagram at From the Honeycomb Podcast, and you can also further your support of From the Honeycomb by visiting the Patreon link provided in the show notes. Your contribution helps make more episodes possible. And lastly, don't forget to subscribe to my monthly newsletter, A Spark of Positive Energy, that comes out on the 7th of each month. Thank you so much, and see you next Friday.